Hello and welcome to this episode of the Clean Energy Pod powered by SSE, your guide to the people and technologies delivering the clean energy transition. In today's show, we talk to Laura Fleming, Country Managing Director for Hitachi Energy in the UK and Ireland, a company that has a bulging order book providing the technologies that will help deliver a net zero energy system. Let's get started. Laura, thank you very much for joining us on the Clean Energy Pod. You're in a brilliant position because everybody is looking for the technologies and the solutions that companies like Hitachi are offering at the moment. What's it like having customers chase you instead of you chasing customers?
Well, it's very much a changed world, as you say, right? Since I think maybe 3-4 years ago. Where exactly, as you're saying, we're seeing this, customers are chasing us instead of us chasing them. And what's that like is, I would really phrase it, we're moving from a project to project-based approach to a program-based approach, because that will allow us to do more with our customers, but also will allow us to plan and to optimize as we go along. So as we've seen the increase in demand, this has been one of the levers that will allow us to, help more customers at the same time.
So beforehand, you're kind of chasing individual projects, but now, it feels like at country levels, we're seeing governments say, actually, we need a big strategic plan, and that needs to think about developers, needs to think about investors, needs to think about the supply chain. Is that what you mean? You're seeing actually a far more, holistic view of what needs to happen to deliver clean power?
Thankfully, we're finally seeing that coming through, that it is holistic. And you might remember the days until about 18 months ago that nobody talked about grid. All the focus around clean power in the UK, but also beyond, was focused on the generation side. As wonderful as that is, at the end of the day, we can't reach our 2030 or beyond targets if we don't build the grid. And actually seeing that change happening has been really, really interesting and quite enlightening. I think what we see combined with that is slowly but surely the realization that we can only build the supply chain, build the skills chain that we also need, because we need lots of people to help us deliver these plans, requires strategic planning. And the strategic planning now is finally starting to come through the Clean Power 2030 plan that has just been released, but also in terms of the Strategic Energy Spatial Plan that we'll be seeing in a few years. But you're quite right. The UK is not just doing this by itself. Lots of countries around Europe, but also Australia, India, Saudi, Canada, and the US, we see moving in a similar way. What we do at Hitachi Energy is using our global presence, our global supply chain, in order to be able to leverage that and plan for what we need to do in each country. In turn, what I then need, particularly say for the UK, is for the UK to be an investable country, for the UK to be really clear on what its plans and targets are, and how we can then work with our customers to secure those supply chains going forward over the next, not just 2 years or 3 years, but really talking 5 to 10 years.
When it comes to the clean energy transition, though, just so everybody's on the same page, just talk us through what the main contribution Hitachi makes to the clean energy transition is.
Hitachi Energy is a technology solution provider. So we supply technologies, equipment, and software to the transmission, the renewable energy, the mobility, the smart city industry throughout. And what that means in real terms is that we will help, for example, renewable energy provider or a generator to connect their project to the grid. So effectively what we're doing is we're helping those people taking the power from the generation source to the source where it is going to be consumed.
So I'm going to build an offshore wind farm in the North Sea, for instance, and I've got all the rights and I've got everything built, and then I phone you up and I say, Laura, can you help me out? I need to plug this in somehow. Hitachi's the company I phone up. Is that right?
Exactly. So we would literally provide you with a plug. This would be the HVDC or the HVAC platform to which all the turbines would be connected. and then the cable will then take that onshore, where we will then connect it into the grid for further distribution and transmission.
And we all know that, Northwest Europe, for instance, that's a booming market in terms of renewable generation. And there's no point in building this stuff unless you can plug it in. That's why we're back to the demand for your solutions. You talked about making the UK investable. One of the questions that people have had is, okay, building lots of offshore wind, for instance, but lots of those jobs tend to be overseas. Is there a way that we can build up the supply chain here in the UK? What are you doing as a company? But what are also doing policymakers to do to help you ensure that the jobs are created here in the UK as well as the energy is generated here?
Besides the opportunity to build and create a sustainable, flexible, and carbon-free grid, it's really important that we also capture the opportunity to grow the economy and to grow local jobs. One way that Hitachi is doing that is delivering engineering positions, for example, in our new head office in Birmingham, and we're looking at a couple of other locations where we're doing that very soon. But we're also looking at how can we grow, for example, in the service and the asset management space, really helping our customers to operate and maintain their assets for as long as possible.
And that's something people don't maybe think about when you're talking about a multinational company. You will have to go and make the case internally as well for the capital, for the money to be invested here in the UK.
Yeah.
Without telling any secrets, when you're going to the board, what is the case you're making about the UK and Ireland?
The case for the UK and Ireland, at the moment, it's really exciting because we see now the new government come in, actually making some really bold decisions over the last 3 months since they've come in, and also really supporting now the strategic planning of the grid and the energy industry. What that is doing is creating a stability, potentially compared to other countries where, UK and Ireland can really step forward as being a leader in the world again, and creating that certainty that the projects will be coming forward in good time.
And when you do that at a global level, are their ears pricking up now more than they were previously?
Yes, because I think what we're seeing is there is more commitment behind it. There is, and for example, if we look at the ASTI framework, that has really been a game changer where SSE and Ofgem have worked clearly together to be able to make anticipatory investments. And what it has allowed SSE to do is to really engage with the supply chain and place orders in anticipation of projects coming forward. And that's a real game changer because that will allow us to plan not just the space in the factory, but also the people that are required to be able to work there. So over the last 3 years, we have hired in excess of 8,000 people globally in order to be able to meet that demand. So we've grown from being about 40,000 people to nearly 50,000 people because it's a huge game changer. What we're really looking at now, particularly for the UK, is what is now required in order to meet the 2030 target, but not just the 2030 target, also what is coming after that, because I think 2030 is only the first stepping point. The grid won't be finished by 2030. We'll need to do a lot more after that as well.
Great. And we used a couple of acronyms in there, and ASTI and other things, but that's essentially beforehand, as I understand it, regulators would have a kind of shorter term horizon for projects. So you're only able to go project by project, but then Ofgem changed their approach to that. So they would look 10, 15 years out, and that allows the developers, the supply chain to say, you know what, there's work coming. We can now invest some money ahead of time because we know there'll be contracts coming through. You've talked about that being a game changer, and you've talked about 2030. We now have the kind of outlines of a clean power plan for the UK by 2030. Do you think, from your perspective, that is achievable, or what needs to happen to deliver that first step along what you say will be a multi-year journey as we build out the grid?
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, I think it's very clear that the plan is saying that it is doable, but there are some real big battles that we need to have very quickly. It's also saying that, for example, the additional projects in offshore wind that need to come online, we really need to decide that in the next 2 years, so that the supply chain has got enough time to to respond and to react to that. And I think that is really providing that platform, that we need, that is setting the tone in terms of how urgent it is, that we've really only got a couple of years to do everything that we need to do to be able to deliver to 2030 as closely as possible.
Do you worry that the industry, government, everybody else who wants to see this stuff happen, that haven't made the case well enough yet to the public? Because there are areas that will have to host infrastructure, and there are people in those areas who will oppose that. How much of a risk do you see in terms of the execution of a clean power plan that public endorsement is?
I think what I'm seeing is that some organizations are trying really, really hard, like SSE, for example, trying very hard to engage with the communities that you're working in, and actually have got a very good reputation for doing so. What I'm also seeing, though, this message is not coming necessarily from government in terms of why it is important and what is really driving, the need to create a clean, flexible and secure energy system for 2030. So I don't think we're explaining well enough, again, as a country, why that is required in order to manage people's bills, in order to be able to, produce our own energy instead of being reliant on other countries selling us their gas or their oil or whatever. And thirdly, what it is that is required to make sure we can switch on the light and we can switch on our computer, or we can do a search on the internet and make sure that it still works at the end of the day.
We've talked a lot in this episode so far about the UK, mainly because you've got a new government that's very focused on this. Laura, you also lead the team in Ireland, and you've got a country there which is incredibly successful economy at the moment, lots of demand for energy and data centres and everything else, and it's clearly got a big coastline and ability to produce lots of renewable energy. Just give us your assessment of the Irish market and where they are in terms of decarbonisation.
Yeah, so I think Ireland's really, really interesting. And as you say, they've really captured the market around data centers, really leveraging the hyperscalers that they've got based there and tapped into that in a really, really clever way. What I see them doing now is actually, really moving into the offshore generation side of things as well. Trying to really create a grid and an energy system that is able to scale up in order to maintain those really big economic drivers into the future. So yeah, it's super, super exciting to see how that is shaping up in the future as well.
So a big growth opportunity for you in the future?
Absolutely, without a shadow of a doubt, yeah. And it's not just on, for example, on the generation piece. We're working actually quite closely with some of our customers in the transportation industry, for example, as well. Decarbonising transportation, super exciting.
Hello, let me interrupt you for just 1 second. It's really important, if you can, to like, comment or subscribe, because it helps more people get access to the information in this podcast, which we hope you're finding valuable. Let's talk a little bit about technologies, because you said earlier on that grid really wasn't a focus up until the last maybe 18 months, 24 months, and now lots of people in the industry recognise that, as I say, there's no point in building vast amounts of offshore wind, for instance, if you can't plug it in. Technologies like HVDC are suddenly getting attention. Can you and people are wondering, will those cables be available in a timely way to deliver on some of the targets there? What are the major technologies that customers are asking you about, and what are those pinch points about delivering them?
I mean, some of the major technologies that we see people or companies reach out to Hitachi Energy for are, around HVDC, high voltage direct current connections. So what Hitachi Energy does is provide the platform. Effectively, it's a substation that will allow the power from AC to be converted to DC, so you can transport it over very long distances without losses. And I think that's a really important point to maybe pause on for a second. So when we're producing power and we're moving it around the system, there are always losses. And of course, when we're creating a new energy system where we want to be more secure, we can be more flexible, but we also want to have a guarantee of supply. The last thing we want to do is throw power away. So we want to reduce those losses, and that's one of the key benefits that HVDC is bringing as opposed to AC. One of the other things that customers are talking to us about is, for example, how do we create that flexibility into the system? So we would be looking at storage facilities. So what Hitachi Energy would do is help those customers plan in where those storage facilities can go and how we can optimize them. So we can use software, for example, in order to plan the system, manage the energy flows around the system in a really good way.
And by storage facilities, what do you mean? Do you mean a cavern somewhere, or are we talking about batteries? Are we talking about power plants? What do you mean?
Yes, it could be, for example, battery energy storage facilities, but it could also in the future be CCUS, right? Carbon capture and underground storage. They all need to become part of the entire system, so that the energy can flow to where it is required at the time of demand. And it's very different in terms of the system where we've come from. With we know where the demand centers are, we know where the power is going to be produced, so we put them close together. If we're going to continue wanting to capture offshore wind, we need to change the system, and therefore building storage capability into the system that will allow us to throw less power away is going to be absolutely critical.
Let's talk about diversity. You're a senior business leader. You're female, and there aren't that many of them in the energy industry in the UK or probably internationally.
Yeah.
How have you got there? How are you finding it? And what's your advice to other women who are in the industry or hoping to move into the industry and would like to be running the industry at some point, like you are?
Yeah, it's interesting, actually. I got here because I firmly believe that that I've got the power to make the world a better place for people to live. That's really where I've come from all of my life in all of my jobs. And actually, the energy industry is really key to making that happen with all the changes that we're seeing, and the huge opportunity that we now have to make our mark on reducing the impacts of climate change, for example. But it's much more than that, because it's delivering jobs, it's delivering livelihoods, it is helping us deliver a sustainable and just transition to many people around the world. And that's what really, really excites me. What is it like to be female in this industry? Well, yeah, at first it was quite daunting. But I think more and more, and as I also speak to my colleagues, they understand where I'm coming from and what it is that I'm trying to do by pulling together all of the all the loose strings and creating a strategic plan for us to go forward as well.
Quite a few of the people who listen and watch this can be earlier on in their careers, for instance, that in the energy industry. More broadly, what's your advice to people at entering the industry or in their early days of the industry at such an exciting period of growth? How, if you were just starting out, how would you be thinking about sculpting your career over the next 10 or 20 years?
Yeah, I would say find out what you enjoy doing. Find out how you connect to your own values and your own passion. try lots of different things, because what's in your head is maybe not what it might be like in reality, and learn as much as possible throughout the industry about all the different segments and sectors, and continue to develop yourself, continue to learn, and connect with as many people as possible.
And let's look at the industry going out then. So it's an incredibly exciting time for the industry, incredibly exciting for you and for Hitachi. What do you think are the big challenges and opportunities over the next 5 or 10 years?
I think the big challenge really is, we haven't got a lot of time to get to 2030. Let's all put our shoulders underneath it and really make it work. And collaboration is absolutely key there. In terms of maybe for the next, sort of 10 years, and the opportunity really that creates is lots of jobs for people, lots of local jobs in the UK, really making a difference to how we operate and how we work in this country. And at the same time, deliver on our targets for clean energy and reducing our impact on the world. So there's so many different areas to go at here. That it's exciting is without doubt.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
And this marks the last episode in the first season of the Clean Energy Pod. We'd like to thank all those many thousands of people who've listened and watched the output over the last few months. We hope you've found it valuable and informative, and we've certainly enjoyed the experience and learned a whole lot along the way. We'd be interested in any comments you have in terms of suggestions for other people or subjects that you'd like to see featured in future editions of the Clean Energy Pod. And from everybody in the team, thank you so much for watching, for listening, and for contributing, and we look forward to seeing you again soon.